everyone. I am Melissa Forziat. I'm a keynote speaker and the host of this Halt and Catch Fire rewatch podcast. Now, when I speak, my topic is something I call Take the Doughnut, which for me is an expression that is the same as carpe diem. It means, go after what you want, seize the opportunities in life. And what I wanted to seize this year was rewatching Halt and Catch Fire and actually talking about it with other people, which has been so much fun to do so far. And here we are. We are in season 2, still early on in season 2. And today I'm covering season 2, episode 2, which was called New Coke. Now, obviously, I saw this title and I knew this was a reference to something. I've said it before, I was born in 83. So I've heard of New Coke, but I felt like I needed to look this up and get a little context to it. And then the context actually is pretty interesting for the episode itself. So New Coke was the unofficial name of a reformulation of the soft drink Coca-Cola. It was introduced by the Coca-Cola Company in April of 1985. It was renamed Coke 2 in 1990 and discontinued in July of 2002. So here's the deal. Pepsi was a competitor of this company at this time, and it was doing very well. And by 1985, Coca-Cola had been losing market share to diet soft drinks and non-cola beverages for quite a few years. Some blind taste tests suggested that consumers preferred the sweeter taste of the competing product, Pepsi Cola, and so the Coca-Cola Company recipe was reformulated, and the American public reacted negatively. So New Coke was basically a rebrand, and it's considered a major failure and was abandoned. And within a few months, they actually had Classic, the Coca-Cola Classic. And so this, as somebody who has had a marketing background, I know that Coca-Cola is a company that reinvents itself somewhat frequently. And it seems like this is a place where maybe they kicked off that tradition in a bad way. And it's something that stuck where they were able to reinvent themselves over time. But when you think about that in the context of this episode, it seems most on the nose to describe this in the context of Gordon, who is absolutely reinventing himself. He's starting a business in his garage. And so calling this episode New Coke, and then next to that, seeing Gordon set up, configure his new office space in his garage makes you feel like, is this also headed for failure? I suppose you could say Joe as well is starting something new, and it doesn't seem like it's off to a good start. It doesn't seem like he's found a position that aligns with who he is and what he needs. So maybe it's in reference to that as well. And, Donna and Cameron, they've been at Mutiny for a little while now. So this isn't a completely new venture. I don't feel like the name New Coke would be referencing them because of that. But we are seeing them struggle in terms of finding their funding and finding the money coming in and dealing with threats to their company. So that's New Coke. Now, this originally aired June 7th, 2015. It was directed by Phil Abraham and written by Jonathan Lisco. The description here is Joe reluctantly accepts a new job offer from Sarah's father. Cameron hires John Bosworth into Mutiny, much to Donna's surprise. And Gordon finds himself with an abundance of free time, unsure of how to spend any of it. All right, let's get into the scene by scene breakdown here. Now we are going to begin in an airplane hangar. This is Jacob Wheeler's airplane hangar, and he's got pictures up all over the walls, and he's got Sarah and Joe there, and he's showing specifically Joe a bunch of the pictures. And so the first thing we hear him saying here is hella skiing in Bulgaria. His chalet had beds like a Soviet prison, but the snow was amazing. So, how he's got to be a little out of touch here, right? To compare the beds in his chalet to a Soviet prison's beds, I think his standards are probably a little different, but there we are. So Joe says, so your first job was in oil? Jacob says, no, I actually worked at my parents' carpet store into my 20s. Sarah says, and his ambition was to bring girls there after hours. So something that happens here in this conversation is that this is a get to know you conversation with Joe and Jacob. But Sarah and Jacob are sort of finishing each other's thoughts and sentences here, or specifically, Sarah is finishing Jacob's sentences. So I feel like this is a story she's heard over and over again. He's told the story of how he's a self-made man many times in his life, it would seem. And so Joe, Jacob has said, he worked in his parents' carpet store. Sarah says his ambition was to bring girls there after hours. And Jacob says, remind me to kill my brother for telling you that story. Okay, so he's not an only child. I don't know how many siblings he has, but he definitely had to make a name for himself and his family. Joe says, so what derailed those plans? And Jacob says, well, there comes a time when a man's got to strike out on his own. And Sarah jumps in with the truth. She says, well, the store burned down. The family livelihood went away. It's funny because Jacob is lying here over and over to Joe, but he also knows that Sarah is there to check him in his lies at every moment. So it's got a playful feel, but it's not so different from how Joe has showed up on every season so far. So Jacob says, okay, at 26, I was unskilled and I set out to eat the world for breakfast, but the only job I could find was managing sludge from a rubber plant outside of Cleveland. My boss had me cut corners and the river caught fire. And Joe says the Cuyahoga River. So he's either done some research or he has a sense of Jacob's story already. Jacob says, I got fired even though I was just working for the guy who was working for the guy. The point being, now Sarah, who has heard this story so many times, jumps in with what the point normally is. And she says, it's always better to be the guy, right? Doesn't that seem familiar? Like just that pithy way it all boils down is the thing that she's heard so many times. It's the lesson. It's the moral of the story she's been gathering. Jacob says, well, yeah, that's my usual joke, but I'll change it up here. He says, the point being, we all have to take our lumps before we come into our own. It makes getting there sweeter. And that seems like a moral of the story that's designed specifically for Joe in this moment, because Jacob has, we're going to find out shortly, done some research on Joe and Joe's history and Joe's recent history. So it's a message to Joe in this new moral of the story he's revealing. So he's going to switch direction here. He says, so you're in love with my daughter. And Sarah gets noticeably uncomfortable here. And as we find out more about what's happened with Sarah in recent years and what that probably means for the relationship and sort of the trust issues that Jacob might have around Sarah and around Joe, you can see why Sarah gets uncomfortable here. Jacob is just going straight into dangerous territory. And Joe's kind of laughing it off, but Joe also doesn't have any of her backstory. So that, he's going to sort of disarm the discomfort of the situation with a laugh. And Sarah's like, you know what? I'm going to go say hi to Graham. And as she's walking away, she's still in earshot. And Joe says, well, I love your daughter very much. She freezes. And he says, among other things, she's skeptical, like you. And, she's going to keep walking here. But Joe, one of the things that they say in terms of like negotiation or, trying to get through in a tense conversation is sort of making a laundry list for people of what they might already be thinking. So, by Joe saying, well, she's skeptical like you, that's a good quality. And so he's sort of opening the door for Jacob to share the things that he's learned, the reasons that he might be skeptical of Joe. He's introducing that. So Joe is trying to keep control in this conversation. Jacob does walk through that open door and he says, okay, well, how do you plan to support her? She's not going to accept money from me while I'm alive. And the money she gets from writing isn't enough to support the two of you. So what's the move? Joe says, well, I'm considering several options. Are you, Joe? What options could those be, really? Jacob says, oil. Joe says, oil is about digging in the past. Jacob says, powering the world isn't interesting enough for you. That's touche. It probably is. Joe says, well, with the glut on the horizon, innovation is bound to be slow. If I were you, I would look to diversify into something forward looking with potential to change everything. And for me, that's tech. That's a lot of chutzpah that Joe has to say this to Jacob. And the truth of it is, whether or not what he's saying is accurate about the landscape for the future, it doesn't seem like Joe's ever taken a minute to consider the position in life of a Nathan Cardiff or a Jacob Wheeler, who are two different people, but they're also a lot older than Joe. And how much are they thinking about the future? Is that their priority right now? How much are they looking towards retirement and what they can do in the immediate term versus the long term? Joe, I don't think, his idea for his age and his plans of how he wants to change the world long term may or may not resonate with somebody who's of Jacob's age. And I don't know if he's considered that at all. But Joe puts his position out there, and Jacob is going to check that. And he's going to say, all right, well, I think with your checkered work history, you don't have options right now in tech or anywhere else. With your abysmal references, I would think you'd have a tough time getting a job selling waffle irons. Okay, Jacob cuts right through it. I've already researched you, Joe. I know what your deal is. I know that you don't have options. He wants to have a real conversation here, and they're getting there. Joe looks caught in this moment. Looks like, okay, surely he must have known that Jacob would look him up, but you can only continue the farce of this conversation for so long. So Jacob says, look, I don't think you'll easily get any job, and I'm offering you one, just so you know. Joe squints a little bit. He's like, I'm not looking for charity. Jacob says, I'm not looking to give you charity. And they just sort of stare at each other. This is the heart of it, right? This is the point that we're getting to. Ultimately, Jacob is trying to find security for his daughter. He can do that by putting Joe in some sort of position that we'll see in a minute that isn't particularly exciting, but has stability, because he thinks, Sarah seems to attract instability. And this is something that he can do. He can make this offer. He can do this thing to try to get some security for her. Whether or not that lines up with anything that either Joe or Sarah wants is another issue altogether, but he's put the offer out there. So we're going to go to the Clark house now, where Gordon is making peanut butter and jelly. They eat a lot of peanut butter and jelly in this house. Let's put it that way. And I think that's fair. Couple young kids, you got peanut butter and jelly in the house. Gordon is excited. It's Dream Lab day. I'm gonna get things set up. No more talking, just action. That's what's happening. I'm gonna teach myself C. I'm gonna learn how to cook. No, but really, I'm gonna learn how to cook for all of us. Do you have any special requests, Donna? Duck à l'orange? Meanwhile, she's not really listening because she's going through probably her VC pitch, her numbers, prospectus, whatever it is that she's looking at right now. She's working. She's not really paying attention. She's like, yeah, did you ever find the crunchy peanut butter? Gordon's like, are you okay? He wants her to be focused and into this conversation. She is not. Donna says, well, sort of. I went to the bank yesterday to increase Mutiny's credit limit, and the guy just laughed at me. Gordon says, well, how much do you need? Because, they're thinking about buying elephants here at the Clark house. I mean, that's the state of the union. Donna's like, yeah, you couldn't afford it. Gordon says, well, that is what venture capitalists are for, after all. And Donna says, yes, if we can close him, but he'll probably balk at our projected growth. So we know that there's a meeting on the calendar for Donna to talk to a venture capitalist about raising money for Mutiny. Gordon's going to come over and be the cheerleader. He says, you always killed your presentations at TI. This is not going to be any different. Just, tell a good story and have confidence with it. And then Haley's going to shout, she's going to shout, Daddy! And he's going to run over to her like an airplane and make an airplane sound. Flying in, babe. So I think it's interesting that we just started off in an airplane hangar with Jacob Wheeler, the dad. And then now we're going to move into this like airplane reference, a game that Gordon is playing with his kid. And there seems to be a more functional parental relationship there between Gordon and Haley versus what we just saw with Jacob and Sarah. But I did like the fact that we're seeing a different context of this plane symbolism, and we're seeing it in a father and daughter situation. And it just looks so different when it's in play. All right, let's go to the Mutiny House. And Cam is, I don't know, she's a leader of this company, and this company is not doing that well right now. They're struggling with a lot of things. They need a lot of things, and she's trying to troubleshoot wherever she can. So we find her critiquing and really sort of chastising Yo-Yo for his code, and he's fighting back. He's like, I'm trying to help the graphics, and Cam says, even if it makes the network crash, fix it by tonight, is what she asks him to do. Then she's going to walk over to Lev's workstation. Lev is not there, and she's like, why is this sequence not done? She's just, why are things not? She's cracking the whip now, and meanwhile, Lev is just a workstation over with Donna, and they're working on something that they're excited about. So Donna calls Cam over, and she and Lev are smiling, and Donna's like, standalone messaging. We did it. Check this out. So she calls it Mutiny Community. And this is going to be a concept that we continue for this season. And so, it's the first time we're going to get this name community. And it's exciting to see a chat room developing here. I mean, this is something that was a lot more common, for me at my age in the 90s. This is when people my age were using chat rooms, and then into college. And, I remember, having an AOL account and being able to chat with friends. And I remember the first time I saw one of my friends doing it and some of the expressions that people were using, and she was explaining it to me. Donna and Lev are coming up with this idea. And so, she says, we're open to something snappier, but Mutiny Community is what this is right now. Cam's like, how many hours did it take you to do this? And Donna and Lev exchange a look like, uh-oh, Cam's going to rain on this parade too, isn't she? Donna says, not many. Cam's like, we talked about this. You can try it, but we're falling behind on games. We can't fall behind on games. That's how we make money. And then Donna's going to cheer. It's our first user. And so we're going to see Dreamslayer79 has entered this chat, has entered community. And we see this person write, what game is this to? And Donna types back, no game, just chat. Hi, how are you? Response, Dreamslayer79 has exited the room. So Cam says, right. Lev, can you please go finish your game code now? That's what we actually do at this company. So, straight away, like, Cam is trying to keep people on task, which is a very unusual role for her to be in here. Probably not a comfortable one. And Donna's found something exciting for her, something that's not working with the hardware, something that's actually the platform itself. All of this is going to be interrupted. Boz comes limping in with a cane. We know from the last episode, Cam had picked him up. He's out of jail, and he was not walking with a cane. So we're already in on this joke. And Cam's in the room, but she's standing back. And this is a joke for the benefit of basically on everybody else who works at Mutiny, who knows Boz. So he's got his cane. He's like, I could really use a chair. And Lev's gonna get him a chair and he's gonna fall into it. And he tells this whole story. Everybody just freezes. Boz is like, the first prison riot, I broke both my ankles. I shattered them. They got me with the water cannon. They blasted me off a second-story catwalk. Pow! Right on the concrete. Oh, that Boz, he's such a storyteller. The guys are stunned. Cam's smiling in the back because she knows what he's doing. And then Boz interrupts the trance that they're all in. He's like, what's wrong with you people? You guys are buying all this? And they just laugh. Now, I find myself undecided about what the actual feeling about Boz is in this room here, because when Boz was carted away from Cardiff Electric, when it was found out that he committed a crime and it was all pinned on Boz and he was sent to jail, all of these guys believed that. And I specifically remember a scene where they were on the porch of the Mutiny House. Cam was there and a bunch of the coders were there, and they were all talking about Boz like they believed he had done something really bad. They were talking about him like he deserved to be imprisoned. They didn't seem to have a lot of love for him. And in that moment, Cam was staying quiet. And I imagine they don't know now that Boz sort of took the fall entirely, but that it was a joint effort between Cameron and Boz, what they had done, the robbing of the bank to get the money. I mean, what's changed since then? I really can't imagine that Cam came out with the whole story. Boz wouldn't have wanted her to. Is it because Cardiff Electric ended up being sold? Maybe some of them got money from that. The people who knew Boz, maybe they got money from that. It's hard to know, or they at least got, paid out well when they were let go from the company. But they left to go to Mutiny. So I'm trying to sort of figure out here, like, why people seem really friendly with Boz when they first see him here. And, Yo-Yo's going to come over and he's going to shake Boz's hand and he's going to introduce Boz to Arky. There's like a lot of stuff that happens here, and I feel like I need more context. So I would love for anybody who's got more insight on this to jump in and illuminate me here. Because then another very quick moment that we get is Yo-Yo is going to introduce Boz to Arky, another one of the programmers, who, when he says hello to Boz, who he has never met, he says Очень приятно, which is, pleasure to meet you in Russian. Again, we are in the middle of a Cold War here, and Boz is older than all of the other guys in this house. He doesn't have a personal relationship with Arky, so I'm wondering what Boz's relationship would be to people of this culture. Like and he actually, when Arky says hello, when he says pleasure to meet you in this language, Boz is like, yeah, sure. And we just keep moving. I never get a feeling that Boz does not accept Arky. And I don't know that I have a reason to think that he wouldn't accept like the Cold War. Like this is what's happening in the country here. So it feels like appropriate that there be a moment of pause, but I don't know that this moment is really explored more. So, Yo-Yo's still going to be very familiar. He's going to say, when did you get out? Boz says, well, I tunneled out a couple of days ago. I'm ready to go. Where do I sit? Lev says, you're working here now? And I can't decide how this line read is supposed to make me feel. It's sort of a straight bat response, but is Lev approving of Boz being there or not approving of Boz being there? I don't know in this moment. And Yo-Yo's like, awesome. So Yo-Yo loves it, and it seems authentic that he does. Boz says, I just signed on as employee number 17. Cam looks over at Donna, and Donna looks back at Cam and clearly did not know or want that Boz work there. So she looks very wary, and she's just staring down at Cam. Okay, we're going to go now to Gordon at the doctor's office. if you remember in the last episode, Gordon had a nosebleed. And so he's getting checked out, and the doctor's asking if he'd had nosebleeds before. He's like, not since I was young at the playground. Doctor asks about any other symptoms. And Gordon admits that when things, I'm assuming when things were really like, they were hitting deadlines with the giant pro, cocaine must have been a thing in the office, and they were using it to stay awake, to keep working to meet the deadlines. And so Gordon acknowledges that, and he says, he used it for like maybe 2 or 3 months whenever we needed it. He says we were under the gun. The doc's like, yeah, well, that could certainly have something to do with this. Cocaine can burn your nasal membranes if you don't die from a heart attack or a stroke first. Gordon says, don't you worry, I stopped cold 3 months ago. Doc says, good. I'd just hate to see your kids grow up fatherless. So the doctor has a very strong opinion about the use of cocaine, as doctor probably should. And Gordon says, hey, you don't need to worry about me. I'm not one of those people who gets addicted to stuff easily. It's not really the indication I have of, he's certainly a workaholic. We know that much. So yeah, it feels like, I don't know. It feels like Gordon's protecting himself, not really sharing all the information that he needs to with the doctor. But here we are. So I don't know what the diagnosis is here really, or what the recommendation is, other than don't do cocaine. Feels fair. Gordon's of course not going to listen to that. So I don't know what we're doing here. I don't know why Gordon went to the doctor if he wasn't going to listen to the obvious advice. But nonetheless, now let's go to outside of the mutiny house. And Donna is going to have it out with Cameron. She's like, you could have told me about Boz working for this company. Cam said, look, we're both sick of playing boss, you and me. And once he gets up to speed, he can take that work off of our plates. He ran Cardiff for 22 years. And Donna says, sure, but mutiny is not Cardiff Electric, for one. For two, he's an ex-con, and we're trying to get funding. Him having a prison record is not going to help us at all. And then she says, we're strapped for cash. What we really need is people. If you're going to bring somebody on, they should know the tech behind what we're doing. They should, if she says you're going to waste it on someone who doesn't know a bitmap from a baud rate, she says, don't do this. Don't threaten what we're building out of guilt or out of feeling sorry for him. Donna knows exactly what happened. She knows that Boz took the fall. And yes, he did something wrong, but he did it with Cameron, and Cameron did not take the fall. And Cameron was able to build mutiny because of Boz going to jail. So Donna acknowledges that there's some emotion behind this. There's, there's a bias here from Cam. But Donna would prefer that she makes a business-only decision. And Cam's going to fight back. She says, he stays. And Donna says, we talked about being in this together, communication being key. This is not what we talked about. We're going to see a couple times this conversation is coming up between Donna and Cameron, and they have two really different, it's not just work styles, two different ways of wanting to communicate with each other in the office. And they have obviously not found their rhythm yet in terms of communication. And so it's just going to keep coming to a head here in this episode. Now, so this is, if you heard the episode, my interview with Robert Komatsu, the editor, we talked a bit about this scene coming up. So as this conversation with Donna and Cam is coming to a close, we're going to hear, while the camera is still on Cam's face, we're going to hear the sound of an engine revving, like a car engine revving. And I remember the first time I saw this and being like startled and confused, because why was I hearing a car but looking at Cam? And so I remember this grabbing my attention, and then my attention was held for this whole really fun next scene. I had never heard this song before, and so this show introduced me to it, And it's this strange, weird little song. It's called Close to the Edit by Art of Noise. And it starts with all these just sounds, these car sounds. And we're going to go, the camera now is going, we're going to switch the scene to, we are inside the hatchback of Gordon's car. We're looking at a bunch of boxes of stuff that he just bought. And we're going to see the hatchback lift, and the person lifting it now is the last thing we're going to see. And we're going to get Gordon's smiling face. It's this like creepy, weird smile. And it makes me so happy. He is very eager to do the unboxing of all the stuff that he bought for his garage. And so, we're going to get a whole little, it's sort of a montage, but it's not really. It's just a lot of quick cuts of Gordon unboxing and setting up. And it's a whole thing to set up 2 workstations. He's got Commodores, he's got Atari boxes, he's got all this stuff, but he's setting up exactly 2 workstations on his desk. And he's plugging things in, he's putting the wires together, he's shifting monitors, he's swirling around in his chair. This is exciting. This is where the action is. It's all happening. He's so enthusiastic. And then he kind of has nothing to do. So he just, in the middle of all this, he just snorts some cocaine because that's still a thing he's doing. And then we get to him, kind of adjusting the monitors just like slightly, a little bit. And now we're good. And then he looks at his completed workstations and he's going to snap a couple times to the beat. And he did it. Everything's set up. And now what do you do? It's a fun scene. And I really like the song that they chose for this one. So now we're going to go to a much quieter, much more still scene between Sarah and Joe. I'm not actually sure where they are here. Does anybody know? So they are sitting outside in a public area. They're behind there's a big building that they're behind. It looks like they're on like a waterfront. They're sitting by a waterfront, and then behind them, between them and where the building is, there's this huge, looks like a fire pit with seating that people can sit around. And there are people who seem to be walking by them, like they're out for a stroll. So I don't specifically know what this location is, but Joe is sitting back, he's looking at the sky, and he's thinking about her father offering him that job. And Sarah says, I'm just mad at him. It's the classic Jacob Wheeler ambush. Joe says, well, what if I took it? Sarah gets serious and she's like, but why would you? We joked about this. You called that place a mausoleum. You said it's a business literally built on fossils. And Joe says, okay, yeah, true. But I've been doing some reading. He says 3D computer modeling is shaking up the industry. It's changing where and how to drill. I could get into that. I could take West Group into the future. Again, who wanted Joe to come in and take this company into the future? I think it's him sort of doing another thing like what he did at Cardiff Electric, which is another business that had nothing to do with PCs until he came in. And Nathan Cardiff did not seem happy about it as a result. He didn't feel good about what he was sold or, the legacy promise that was made to him. Yet Joe is, like, is this how he's making peace with the idea of working for Jacob because he doesn't think he has any other options anyway? Is this something he actually plans to do? I assume it is something he actually plans to do here. Sarah says, well, what about those other jobs? Joe says, they didn't pan out. So if we're keeping a tally of all the red flags that Sarah has had, I'm going to add this one to it, right? Because he told her that he had other options. I seriously doubt that he did. Jacob Wheeler knew that just by kind of glancing at the situation. I have to agree with Jacob's assessment. We don't know of any offers that were made to Joe. I think he lied to her about this. He said something to comfort her and she believed it. So he says, they didn't pan out. Sarah looks off into the distance. Is that far away look her remembering her past relationship and how things went with that? I don't know. Joe says, I know that's no reason to work for your father's oil company, but I've kicked the tires on this, Sarah, and I'm interested. I'm going to change the world and the whole oil drilling business. Sarah says, or maybe you're just tired of waiting. He scoffs a little bit. Sarah says, I know this past year being on the sidelines has been tough for you. When you said you were waiting for contact, though, I didn't think it was from my father. That seems like a joke about the SETI program, waiting for contact, maybe. So, it could mean that. It could mean waiting for contact from people who have jobs. That it all kind of works on the same level. Joe says, if this is too weird for you, I can wait. I can wait for something else to come along, which the way he says that is a little bit loaded. So what's she supposed to say here? She says, no, I don't want you to be unhappy. We'd have to move to Dallas, for you to work for my father. Joe says, would that make you unhappy? Sarah smiles. She says, Joe, if you want the job, take the job. And he smiles. I mean, I don't know if she necessarily I don't know how close she really is with her father. I think there's tension there, probably based on the story that we hear later. So Joe taking this job, I don't know how much she loves that the job was offered. I don't know that she loves that he would take it. I think she probably would prefer that he find something that wasn't connected to her dad. But she's going to smile and let him do it. So there we are. She, whatever she feels about this, if she doesn't feel good about it, she doesn't feel like she can put her foot down. So Gordon, we're going to go back to him. He is high and he's frustrated. And he does not know what to do with this workstation that he just set up so lovingly and enthusiastically. So he's going to grab the C book, because he wants to code. He wants to learn how to code. And a mutiny disk, welcome to mutiny, it falls. And he puts it into his computer. So he must have, purchased, he's a new subscriber. He's going to get access to it. This is the software that comes in the mail. So he puts it into the computer and we're going to hear the sound of a modem. And while you hear that sound, he's going to make a call to Donna. So for anybody who lived during this time or during the 90s, you would know that one of the issues with getting online was that when you heard that sound of the modem, that is usually you wouldn't be able to use the phone. Phone calls could not come in. You could not make calls going out because you were using the phone line to connect to the internet, to connect to get online. And Gordon's able to do it anyway, which means he got a second phone line so that he could talk on the phone and be on the internet. So Donna, well, not the internet, the getting online. So he makes a call to Donna at Mutiny, who she is walking and rooting. She's prepping for this meeting she's supposed to have with this venture capital firm. And as she's walking through the hall at the Mutiny house, we're going to see Frosty, and Arky is chasing Frosty. He's going to try to hit Frosty with a ball, but he hits Donna instead. It's just mayhem over there. And Yo-Yo's going to hand the phone to her. It's just so many things happening while you're trying to prep for this really important meeting. It's Gordon on the phone for Donna. And Gordon's announcing, I got a second phone line so we can talk while I go, online. And she's like, that's great, except I'm trying to do work. So Gordon says, how did your VC meeting go? She says, it's in an hour from now. She's prepping for it. He wonders if he can help her prep. She's like, nope, gotta prep, gotta go. Gordon's going to need to find something to do, but it has to be something that doesn't take Donna's time. It's go find a thing, Gordon. Find a thing that you can do. So Gordon is going to sign on to Mutiny as Sexy Beard. That's his username. And he goes to play Tank Battle. And instantly he finds something to get upset about, something that he can fixate on for the entire episode. He's upset because he gets hit, but he shot first. And now he needs to troubleshoot. He needs to make sure this is an issue. He needs to diagnose. And so he's going to call his buddy, Stan. Stan, come over. What are you doing right now? Because he needs to diagnose this tank battle issue. Okay, so we're going to go over to the VC firm lobby. It's a firm called Stokes Capital, and Cam is there. She's waiting for Donna. She's in a waiting room in a reception area, and she is staring at two paintings. One is red and one is blue, and they're sort of just like abstract swirls. And this reminded me of something that I was pretty sure I had seen on previous research about the show. So I came upon it again. Look, there's a blog or an article that somebody named John Tetty wrote about the use of the RGB color palettes for some of the main characters. So he only speaks to the colors red, green, and blue and the usage of them. So he has assigned them to three of the main characters. And in this article, he assigned red to Donna as a color palette that's used for her in the show. He assigned blue to Joe as a color palette used for him, something that obviously references IBM as well. And then he assigned green to Gordon. In this model, I'm not sure what color Cam would have been, but if I apply that to this scene, and look, I don't know, for those of you who really notice coloration or color schemes in the show, color schemes in the how they tint the camera itself, maybe clothing choices. In terms of use of color palettes, does this line up for all of you with how you've seen color represented for these characters? If you go by this idea that red is Donna, blue is Joe, we're going to get Cam standing right smack in the middle of two big paintings. One is red and one is blue. And they're those, swirling circles. So if I take that interpretation, I would think of this as like Cameron is sort of caught in the middle of these two different worlds, And if Gordon's not in there as a green circle, it's because Gordon just went out on his own. He's no longer at Cardiff Electric. That's not a thing. He doesn't represent another workspace, another company at this time. But Donna represents Mutiny, and Joe currently is, looking to get into the West Group Energy. So those are two major companies that are going to be players in this season. So I don't know. I think it's an interesting take on this, and I'd be curious if anybody else has noticed stuff about the colors here. Okay, so Donna's going to arrive, and she's wearing, pardon my complete lack of fashion knowledge, she's got like a suit jacket and a skirt, and she looks fancy. She's putting on an earring. Cam does not look fancy. She is much more casual for this meeting. And Donna's just getting herself together. She's like, thank goodness I'm not late. Yo-Yo, he tripped over a surge protector. He sent 3 XTs flying. But the good news is that a bunch of pizza boxes broke their fall. She says, saved by squalor. And she's just distractedly putting her earring in. And Cam's like, was I supposed to dress up? And Donna says, was I supposed to dress down? Donna's like, maybe they want young and rebellious. And Cam's like, well, I don't know. Or maybe they don't want to invest $1 million in you if you've got holes in your jeans. Damn it. So, they're even approaching this meeting, and they've got different styles and they're on different pages. But whatever the resolution of that would have been, the receptionist calls their names and says, Mr. Bondum, we'll see you now. So we're going to go and we're going to meet Mr. Bondum, this venture capitalist who, he's just heard Donna and Cam's pitch. He closes the binder. He says, okay, so you've put up chess, checkers, backgammon, tank battle, and parallax, but let's ignore those first 3 because who cares about those? And Donna laughs, kind of offended. And Cam's like, what? He says, okay, so you've done 2 games in 15 months. Not really in a hurry now, are we? Cam says, well, Parallax has 21 chapters with totally different worlds. Bonham says, well, the reason you got this meeting is that my nephew, he got hooked on Parallax, but he got bored around chapter 13 when the giant ice squids, Kim's like, crabs, ate the Eskimo palace. He said it's fun to play with other people, but the game itself, not as good as what Atari's been popping out. Right about now, I'm thinking, why did this man take this meeting? Why? I have been in a situation like this at least once where I'm just like, you called me, you set the meeting with me to tell me that I suck. Why was that worth any of our time? It tells me a lot more about the person than about my own stuff, or at least it did at that time. And it's telling me the same thing for Cameron and Donna. It's telling me that, like, why have this meeting? Does he have so much free time that he just wanted to call them in so he could say, your games are terrible and you're not producing enough? Why bother? Why, like, if it's about telling his nephew that he took a meeting with these people, I don't know. Does he really have that much time on his hands? Like, I would think he'd want to spend it more productively. And at the very least, don't waste these people's time. So Cam is like, well, yeah, if your nephew understood coding a little better, he'd think Parallax was pretty cool. And Donna's kind of like fake smiling because I think she's already feeling like this is not headed in a good direction. Cam says, look, cartridge games may look better for a while, but online gaming is the future. Bonham says, only if there's a profitable way to sustain it. Donna jumps in. She's like, yes, maybe I can save this thing. So she says, that's why we're here. Our network is overloaded, limiting our ability to sign up new subscribers. Bonham says, but how do you know they're out there? 10% of Americans have computers, only 15% of those have modems, and you're only on Commodores. So how do you know there are enough users out there to make us all a killing? And that's a good question, right? I think when it comes to like business plans, the marketing aspect of business plans, the market research is usually pretty limited, but it's often limited to, is there a market? Is there a viable number of people out there who could make this profitable for you? It generally doesn't speak to how you're going to reach them, or an actionable plan to get there. It's more about the big picture of saying, are there people, is there enough demand out there for the supply that we'd be putting out? Kim says, well, we just do know, there are in-store inquiries, word of mouth, there's a world of data. I think about this point, Donna's like, yeah, we're not getting this money. And Bonham says, yeah, well, with proof like that, how can I argue? Donna says, well, if we had the capital to buy 10, 11, 750s, Bonham says, yeah, so those are 35 grand a pop used. She says, well, they're 32, but we would look for the additional funding to cover the operations for the next fiscal year. And then Bonham just stops them in their tracks. He says, so tell me, what about kids? And Donna says, excuse me? And Cam just squints. Bonham says, do you have or want kids? Not a question you could probably ask right now. Actually, I don't know what you can ask in the venture capital world because this isn't an HR situation exactly, but yeah, if he's asking the question, he's already found his answer. Like, because they're women and have the capacity to have kids, he's already got his answer, because maybe at some point they'll decide to have them if they don't already. Donna leans back and Cam says, no, I don't have or plan to have them. Donna says, I have too. And what does that have to do with our pitch? Bonham says, when I invest, I bet on the people. Success is no Sunday drive, ladies. It's not another to-do tacked on the fridge. If you two, as you claim, are really going to run this business, I need to know that you're fully committed long-term. even over biological imperatives. So he's gonna, when he says biological imperatives, and this was almost worse than all the words that came out of his mouth, he points at them and he's like, even over biological imperatives. And he's just circling his finger. You couldn't really see that with the camera. It's like you with your ovaries. So and your uterus. He's not into this. He knew that they were women prior to them walking into the office. So this was always the thing that he could say to cut the conversation short, no matter how the conversation went. Donna is offended. Kim's just like, are you going to give us the money or not? Which obviously the answer is no. She's just like, we don't need formalities. We don't need goodbyes. Let's make this thing unhappen. Let's stop it right now. Donna closes her binder. Meeting over. So I imagine that kind of thing would have happened a lot if they went to venture capital firms. And there it is. So Joe, now we're going to skip over to Joe. He's walking into a tall office building. We see him outside the office. He's going to look up at a large skyscraper. And as he's doing that, I'm noticing the frame is tilted. So it's not something I noticed a lot in this episode, but there are a couple of moments when I specifically noticed sort of the Dutch angle of it all. And, I think he's walking into an office where his world's going to tilt a little bit. So that felt very appropriate. Now we're going to then see an elevator opening he is inside the building now. Joe's going to come out of an elevator into what does not look like a fancy office space. He's going to be greeted by Eugene Bowditch in data entry. Joe's like, I was just on the 23rd floor for my orientation. And then human resources told me to come down to B2, which would be probably like a parking below a basement level. I think there's been a mistake, he says. Eugene says, no, I see right here, you're on my clipboard. I have a clipboard here in my hands. You're on it. Eugene's going to start the tour. He says West Group Energy is a parent group to 9 wholly owned subsidiaries, and we do the data entry for all of them. We are a very important functional area. Eugene lets Joe into the office. He's going to show him some color-coded baskets. He's going to talk about digitizing the company records. We've been doing it since 1974. We've made great strides since then. Joe's like, does Jacob know what I'm working on here? And Eugene's like, Jacob Wheeler? The man, the myth, the legend, right? Like, Eugene's never met Jacob Wheeler. Joe says, never mind. So you do all of this by hand? Eugene's like, well, no, we use optical character recognition, which we then correct by hand. Says, but for those really naughty images, we have to use the big kahuna over there, which he points to another big machine. That might be the microfiche machine. He says, but you'll have to ask me first. Because that's the kind of power and control Eugene exerts over the data entry floor. Joe just looks befuddled. How did all this happen? How did he go from like a visionary running a company to a guy in the B2 level working, like needing Eugene to give him access to fancy machines. So Eugene just rubs more salt in the wound. He says, okay, so a couple rules: clock out at the end of your shift. Joe is not a clock in, clock out kind of guy. And he says, and we labor to keep the bathrooms tidy. I trust you'll comply. Compliance is not Joe's strong suit. Eugene's going to leave, and Joe just looks around to just take stock of his world as it stands right now. Now we're going to go to the garage again, to the Clark garage. Gordon is aggressively playing tank battle with Stan. Stan's like, geez, wow. This is a lot. Gordon says, the timing is off. You should be dead. He's trying to figure out this timing issue that's happening. Stan looks over, sees that Gordon has some cocaine there. He's like, "You're still taking that stuff?" Gordon says, "No, I just found some left over. And what was I supposed to do? Throw it away?" So he's, lying. So they're going to fire their tanks at the same time. He wants to do one more test of this. And Gordon confirms, look, there's some sort of a glitch here. Like I cheated. I actually pushed the button before you did. And still you win this one. Stan says, "Let's just take a break, shall we?" Gordon says, "No, I'm going to call Donna." And then he goes to make a call, but now both of them are using a line. So there's not a third line. So he can't make a call to Donna. He's going to have to go over to the mutiny house to actually talk with her. Stan's like, "Are you okay to drive?" The answer is no. Gordon says, "Sure, I'm fine. Could you pick up the girls? That's what you should do." Stan's like, "I haven't seen them in years." Gordon's like, "Not a problem. I'll give you a photo from my personal collection. These are the girls." And he says, "Can you just I don't know, buy him snacks or something?" He hands him just a bunch of wadded up loose bills. Stan's like, "This can't be it." Um, lot of red flags here for Gordon's world. All right, so Boz is at the mutiny house. He's in the bathroom. He's looking in the mirror, taking a good solid look at himself and what's become of his life. I suppose New Coke could also refer to Boz here as well as we think about that title of the episode. He's going to come out of the bathroom and he's going to go into the kitchen, and the guys have pranked him. They've put on his chair, because his workstation is the kitchen table, alone. And the guys have left a Texas license plate and a bar of soap, which are some jokes about prison. And so we can see them in another doorway. They're all just sort of, you can see all the faces lined up, them wanting to see Boz's reaction. And he's going to pick up the license plate and the soap. And one of the guys, Frosty, says, "He touched the soap. He touched the soap." And they're all laughing to themselves. Boz says, "Very clever, ladies." And he leaves. The guys are like, "Did you see the look on his face?" Again, what do they think about Boz being there? Is this coming from it's a prank, but it's a good-hearted prank? Because it doesn't feel like it. But then Yo-Yo was so excited to see him. I don't know. So Gordon's going to enter the mutiny house, which is going to confuse Carl a little bit. Why is this guy walking in? Gordon looks over and he sees all the wiring on the wall. And it's just a wall filled with wires, cables coming out in every direction. He's like, "Well, that's a fire hazard." He keeps walking. He sees Lev and Yo-Yo, who he recognizes, and he says, "Hey, where's Donna?" Lev says, "Shouldn't you be in Tahiti or something with all that money you just made?" Gordon says, "No, there's a problem with Tank Battle and we need to talk about it." He wants to interrupt everything they're working on. And he says, "The game's not fair." Yo-Yo's like, "We've got bigger problems than that right now." And it's a good thing Cam isn't here, because Yo-Yo wants to be protective of Cam. And obviously Cam left Cardiff Electric and Gordon represents Cardiff Electric. Gordon says, "Yeah, okay, so here's the deal. There are times when I shoot someone in Tank Battle and the game doesn't read it and I get killed anyway." And Lev's like, "Maybe you're just shooting second?" Gordon says, "No, Stan and I fired at the exact same time. And even when I cheated and shot first anyway, the results were still random." Gordon has been doing some research on this. He says, "Your system is reading inputs from multiple modems, right? Well, in a given game cycle, the token checks them one at a time to see who fired their tank." And Lev says, "Okay, yeah, if you're asking if it's random, it's random." And he puts some fancy text suite behind it, but he confirms Gordon's confusion. So Gordon's like, "Well, okay, what's the point of playing a game if the outcome is random? I have a fix for you on this." I like this line about what's the point of playing a game if the outcome is random? Because it's kind of like, if you step back, it's really an existential question. It's like, why are we doing this life thing? I don't know that he necessarily meant that deep a question, but I thought to myself, he's a guy with some time on his hands now. He's probably wondering what he's meant to be doing with it. And this idea of like the game shouldn't be random and life shouldn't be random is something that struck me. But he has a fix that he wants to propose, and Yo-Yo's like, wait, aren't you just a hardware guy? Gordon says, well, I'm also the degree in computer science from Berkeley guy. And then he proposes a solution involving timestamps and sequencing things. And it's actually kind of a good solution. Lev and Yo-Yo are very impressed. And they think about it, and the phone's going to ring. I was like, that's solid. That's a solid suggestion. Lev says, that's not dumb. We should try that. So it seems like they do want to make the fix that Gordon just proposed. But first, Frosty is going to shout to the guys in the office, somebody find Donna. Someone tried to kidnap her kids. Gordon's like, that's going to be Stan. Gordon goes over to the phone. He's like, damn it, Stan. And it's Principal Hawkins from the school on the phone, because you knew this was going to happen, having a random man pick up these kids. The kids probably, who knows if they even remembered Stan. So Gordon's talking to Principal Hawkins. He's like, yeah, that was a friend of mine. I asked, yeah, I know we were supposed to call first. I know. Lev and Yo-Yo are looking very smug with themselves. Gordon's going to have to go and pick up the kids. And he walks over to Lev. He hangs up the phone. He walks over to Lev and Yo-Yo. He's pointing his finger. He says, pizza deliveries for a week, if not a single word about this. And Yo-Yo's like, a month plus soda. Gordon says, look, I can take heat from my wife. I just prefer not to. That's a position of weakness for Gordon. I always enjoy the I prefer not to line, because it makes me think of a story I read. It was called Bartleby the Scrivener. I think it was a Melville story. And it's the setup of it is that there's a guy who gets a job with a firm, and he's kind of this strange guy. And every time somebody asks him to do something, he says, I would prefer not to, except that's his job. And you're supposed to do the things that people ask you to do. And they're so confused by somebody saying, I prefer not to, that they're like frozen. It's action paralysis. That's the setup. And if you're intrigued, go read Bartleby the Scrivener. So that has nothing to do with the story, but I just enjoy people saying, I prefer not to. So Gordon's like, I can take this heat. I just prefer not to. Lev says, 2 months. Gordon says, no. 1 month of pizza. We have a deal. He's going to leave. Now, meanwhile, Cameron and Donna are licking their wounds coming back from this meeting with the venture capitalist that didn't go well. They're walking back to the house, and Cam's like, they didn't want a vision. They wanted an Adam's apple. That's a really good line, actually. Donna says, well, at least what we wore didn't matter. All that concern they had over their attire not matching each other. As they're coming up to the mutiny house, they're behind the house, and Boz is throwing away the license plate and the soap, and they see it. And he's like, a lot of pranking going on here. And Lev is going to run out, and he's going to call for Cameron and say, Cameron, you need to see this. We have some trouble. She's going to run back in with Lev to diagnose or figure out what the issue is. And that gives Boz and Donna a moment. And it's awkward because Donna doesn't want Boz working there, but also he was just throwing out a license plate and soap, and he just mentioned pranking, and she feels bad for him. You can see in her face that she just feels compassion for this man right now. And he doesn't want to talk about that. He says, well, they had a power fraz about an hour ago, and you might want to check that out. And she sort of nods her head, and she doesn't say anything, but you can just feel the weight. She feels the compassion. She goes into the house. Inside the house, Lev is showing Cameron the problem, and he says, it's exactly like our Parallax, except with better graphics. So we've got Lev, Yo-Yo, Wonder Boy, and Cameron there looking at this replication of their game. Cam says, where did you get this? Yo-Yo says, a friend of a friend copied it from his friend for free. Cam sees Donna come in and she says, some asshole just ripped off Parallax and is giving it away. Donna says, he hacked into our network. Cam gets in front of the computer. She starts typing in some things. Yo-Yo says, supposedly he signed it in the comments. Cam finds the name. She says, it's Tom Rendon. Donna says, check if he's a subscriber. And Lev finds out that he is. Rendon T, he gets the address for Tom. He's even still logging on. Cam is stunned. Somebody just stole her game and is giving it away for free, so nobody's going to want to buy Parallax. So Cam and Donna, we're going to now go to a scene where they're staking out Tom's house because they have his address, and we're going to see a car pull up, and Tom comes out of the car and he's going to get groceries from the trunk. They come up to him and he says, who are you? Cam says, we're the people whose game you stole. Tom says, mutiny. I was hoping it would find its way to you guys. What did you think? Donna says, Mr. Rendon. Tom says, Tom. She says, Mr. Rendon, we appreciate your business for the last 10 months. You can't just copy our game and expect to get away with it. Tom says, okay, I didn't just copy Parallax. I made it a lot better. If I wanted to get away with it, I wouldn't have signed it. Donna says, stop it or we'll be forced to take legal action. Cease or desist is what she says to him. Tom says, okay, well, I run IT at a law firm. I can help you find a lawyer. Cam says, okay, you think a couple girls won't sue your ass into the ground? So Cam and Donna are like fresh off of this meeting with the venture capitalist who, you know, he was underestimating them because they were women. And then here's this guy stealing their game and thinking that they're not going to sue him because they're women. Nuh-uh. Tom says, no, you won't sue me because then you'll make me mad and I'm not going to tell you how to make your game better. Want to come in? I can give you some beer and talk about the game. Cam says, look, you might think you made the game better, but we do games online. You know, if you want to do stuff across a phone line, you gotta. And Tom says, yeah, I get it. You don't want to use spaghetti code. You want to make more with less. That's the art of it. Have you ever tried page flipping, dithering? Cam sort of double takes. This guy knows his stuff, but she's still offended. And she says, no, I'm new to coding. Tom says, well, have you tried combining it with anti-aliasing? You do it all in C, you also cut back on memory. And Cam's really stunned now. So like underneath all of this guy knows his stuff. Tom says, that beer offer still stands if you want a tutorial. Donna says, just don't do it again, Mr. Rendon, or we'll have a problem. Tom says, yes, ma'ams, mea culpa, I hereby cancel my subscription. He walks into the house and Cam is amazed and she's just looking at Donna. What she just saw blew her away. Now, I am unsure because I haven't had an opportunity to talk about this show with a lot of people up until this rewatch. So I don't know if I'm about to make a comment that is extremely unpopular. I don't know if this is the hottest take or the coldest take. I really like the character Tom Rendon. I have a feeling there are a bunch of people out there who don't. I really like this character. And I think that from this very first episode that we see Tom in, here's my theory, and I want to see if this bears out over time. I think that Tom Rendon, and look, this is not a spoiler, it's just to say Tom is a somewhat significant character in this show. Hopefully you're getting that feeling already, even if this is your first watch. I think that Tom Rendon is Cameron 1 season ago at like almost every point. This is just a theory I'm putting out there, and I want to see if this checks out on this rewatch. So we are meeting Tom here, and he's very much like the guy who has a quarter on a string and is playing his favorite game with it and is getting caught and thrown out of the arcade. Like, I think Tom is just Cam a season behind, like kind of all the time. And it's sort of interesting to think about that trajectory and what Tom's existence says about Cam at different points, and what Cam's existence is going to say about Tom at different points, perhaps. So let's just see if this holds up over time, because I haven't dotted all the I's and crossed the T's on this one, but I think it's an interesting one to explore. And, what does that mean in terms of the connection that Cam and Tom have? Because if you remember, when Cam told Joe off at the threshold of the door at the Mutiny House at the end of season 1, she was like, you weren't the future, you were just echoing my ideas back to me. And so it sounded good because they were my ideas. Here, Tom isn't echoing her ideas back to her. He's got his own knowledge, and he's up leveling her ideas, and he's really smart, but he thinks like her, and he appreciates her work, and he knows her work, and he thinks he can do it better. And he's acting like her. He's stealing the game and giving it away. He's Robin Hood. He's like, I don't know if the thing that's stopping in her tracks is that she's so amazed by his technical knowledge, or that she's amazed by the spirit with which he's doing this, or is she seeing a guy who wants a soul behind the machine like she did last year? Like he wants a mission, and he wants a purpose to the game, and he wants to make it better. And he's got something very inspired, and that's not what she thought she was going to get when she showed up at his house. Okay, so that's my thoughts about Tom. I'm putting it out there. I like this character. I think we need this character. All right, so we're going to go back to the Mutiny House kitchen where the guys are eating pizza. There are so many pizza boxes in this kitchen. Whoever was in props, the set decoration for this, there are pizza boxes everywhere. There's so much pizza. It's hysterical how much pizza Gordon got. This is a man who is high and is not able to make good decisions about how much pizza equals a month worth of pizza. So, okay. So they're all stuffing their faces, and Love comes in. He's found an envelope with a letter in it from Boz to Cameron. He figures it's the last letter from jail. And they have some pot boiling on the stove, and Lev's going to put the letter over it so that he can open the envelope. And he starts reading this letter in Boz's voice. And at first, everybody thinks it's funny. They're joking about it, but it's actually a really serious letter. Boz talks about how he's thinking about his ex-wife and his sons. And he's trying to decide if all of this was the right thing to do. And Carl says, maybe we should just stop this. And Wonder Boy agrees. So somehow, the number of the people in the room are thinking that this is going too far already. And Boz says, finish it. Finish the letter. Now this is awkward because Lev, he's going to drop Boz's voice, but he is going to keep reading. He says, was what I did worth it? I think so. Am I good in the eyes of God? Doesn't really matter. Cam's going to come in during this, and she is so upset that this is being read aloud. She hasn't even read this letter. It was sealed. She says, get out of here. Go home. She says it to everybody in the room, and Lev raises the obvious issue. He says, this is where I live. And Cam, and I really enjoy this line, then go someplace I can't see you for a long time. Haven't we all wanted to say that at some point or other to somebody we had to see frequently? And so they're all going to scatter. They're going to leave the room. Boz stays for a second. Cam's going to look at him, and she's just got this pained look on her face, and he's going to leave. All right, we're going to go back to Gordon and Stan, who are currently having a beer. Gordon says, we work well together. We should start another project. I could even fund it until it gets off the ground. Stan likes the idea, but he's off to greener pastures already. He says he's headed up to Northern California. Gordon's like, do you have a job? Stan says, no, I'm rolling the dice. I booked my ticket when I got the pink slip from Cardiff. Stan wants to see what's out there in this great big world. Gordon says, yeah, but the big dogs are out there, it's eat or be eaten. Stan says, yep, that's good because I'm a hungry, rough. You don't need a partner, Gordo. Whatever you dream up will be incredible. Aw, Stan. Stan's a supportive friend. I don't know that Gordon's so supportive of a friend. It sounds like he was doubting Stan, but it's nice from Stan. Gordon says, okay, let's play another round. They probably recoded Tank Battle now to fix the issue that I raised. So the two are going to count to 3 and they're going to fire at the exact same time, but there's a long delay for both of them. And Gordon's like, why is this? There's a low user volume. What is happening here? Stan says, I wouldn't pay for this crap. Gordon says, the idiots messed it up. Now this game sucks even more. Meanwhile, we're going to cut to what's happening at the Mutiny House, where Carl and Wonder Boy are doing the same test that Gordon and Stan just did. They're going to go 1, 2, 3. Yo-Yo and Lev are looking on. They also have a long lag. And Lev's like, I don't get this. Yo-Yo says, how many users are online right now? Wonder Boy says 132. Carl says, nuh-uh, check again. I'm showing 80 live modems. Lev says, hang on a second. There's code in here that we didn't write. Cam and Donna are going to come up now because they can see that something's happening. Lev says, somebody hacked into Tank Battle. They added bytes that let multiple users play on a single line. Yo-Yo, once again, I don't know if when Yo-Yo says this is awesome, like when Boz said he was going to work at the company, I don't know if Yo-Yo saying that always reflects the wider outlook. Maybe he just thinks a lot of things are cool. He says, this is like when a kid buys a movie ticket and passes it back to his friends. Cam's going to give him a good solid death stare. Like, that's all well and good unless you're the movie theater, right? So Lev says, here's one that allows 12 users on a single line. Cam says, how? Do you guys have back doors on your code? Yo-Yo says, well, yeah. Did you tell anybody? Donna says, okay, first of all, delete the bytes. Nobody gets free rides. Get those users onto their own, they're not sharing modems here. Then we'll talk about security. Kim says, okay, hold on a second. If the hacks are coming from a user, I could probably trace them. So she starts typing into a computer. And then we're going to cut from there to Cam knocking on Tom's door because that wasn't going to be the last we saw of Tom. She says, how did you do it? Tell me, you stole money out of my pocket by getting 12 modems to share a single phone line. So you owe me how you did this. Tom says, I built a PBX in software, my own private branch exchange, and 12 is nothing. I'm working on 3 times that amount. Cam says, wow, if Mutiny could do that, that would make our overhead per user that many times smaller. She never even thought of what he's doing. This never occurred to her. He is innovating in a way that she probably respects, but because she's the business owner, it's a problem and she has to figure out how to solve it. But it's also an innovation. And this is the guy who made that innovation happen. And it's like, there has to be respect right here in this conversation, So Cam says, look, I think you're good at this. You could be hacking into anyone, but are you? CompuServe, Genie? Here's what I think, Tom. I think that you're only cloning our games and hacking our network. And either it's because you spent all your time hating us, or maybe you just love what we do. And Tom says, who says it takes that much time to do what I'm doing? Cam says, I do, because I looked at the log of how, who are our top 10 users based on most time spent in a month. And you're at number 4. Tom, yep, that's true. He doesn't even acknowledge that it's accurate. And he says, well, I could set up a software PBX for you. I could set up 50. Cam says, are you asking for a job? Was this your way to get my attention for a job? Tom says, well, I like my job. No, the job pays well, the hours are good, and I can work on games in my spare time. She's like, you stealing somebody else's games doesn't equal you working on games. Tom says, I don't want the job. Can we just skip the lecture? Give me a call if you want the PBX. Cam says, okay. And they stare at each other. We're just going to see a stare off. I mean, I think there's a mutual respect here. She has acknowledged that Tom's doing this because he loves what Mutiny is doing. And that's accurate. Or it seems that it is based on where he took the conversation from there. And she thinks he's really good at what he does. So what's going to happen from here? Well, we're going to see Donna in the Mutiny kitchen / Boz's desk. And she's writing into a notebook, and Cam's going to come in. Donna says, well, I talked to 3 different lawyers today. They said the worst thing we could do is confront Rendon. I wonder if she said this knowing that Cam already would have confronted Tom Rendon. Cam says, well, look, I think he's hacking to get our attention, but I think he's the real deal and we should hire him. And he gave me his resume and I want to just talk with you about it. Donna says, you already hired him, right? She's like, I just spent the entire afternoon planning a legal strategy. This is not a good use of our resources. And once again, they're not communicating. Donna says, okay, what did you offer? Cam says, 25K. Donna says, make it 20. He'll take it. I talked to the law office where he works. They're going to let him go anyway. He knows it. And Cam, if you want to give him more than that, you're going to have to give him my salary, because we're not doing this anymore where you keep making these unilateral decisions, not including me. If you keep doing this, I won't be sticking around. Cam, she was smiling at first, and now she's going to stop smiling. She says, yeah, okay. Thank you. And she's going to leave. It doesn't feel like Cam learned her lesson here. Something about the way Donna's delivering this, it feels like Cam is going to be able to keep doing this stuff. And Cam, I think, made an interesting choice here with Tom, and there are good reasons behind it. And I think it's insightful, and she really understood his behavior and she made a decision based on that. Donna, had she taken a legal angle with this, that might have been the protective, safe approach for the company. But the easier solution here might be what Cam just did, because this person was trying to get their attention, has a lot of skills, could be a huge asset to the company. And so you can see, like, Cam took a riskier approach. Donna was looking at the safer approach. And that's like kind of how they're guiding this company. All right, so now we're going to get a phone call between Sarah and Joe. Joe calls Sarah, says, how was your day? Sarah says, no, you first. How was your job? Joe's like, well, it's good. We're computerizing records. We're archiving things. I even get to use the microfiche machine sometimes if I get approval. Sarah looks really disappointed. She says, this is all my fault. She now gives him backstory that apparently she never gave him before. So this was information she was holding back from Joe. She says, he's punishing you for Peter, her ex. She says, Peter hooked my father, got him deep on a few deals, one in Zurich, then this other thing. Nothing ever materialized. Those deals weren't real. My father lost a few million, and this happened right before we got divorced. She says, my father let his guard down because of me, and Peter never paid him back. And Joe throws his head back in understanding. Joe says, how come you didn't tell me? She says, I hate myself for it. I didn't want you to see me as a victim or as an idiot. I'll call my father now. He has no right. Joe says, wait. I thought there had to be a reason for this. And now I know he's just testing me. I'd do the same thing if I were in his shoes. She says, yeah, but this is a waste. Joe says, no. I'm a big boy. Let's just let this thing breathe for a second. Let's play it out. She's going to nod. Okay. Joe says, look, with what I'm getting paid, a 2-bedroom in North Park won't happen. She says, I don't care. We could pitch a tent. It's fine. He says, I'll see you at home. I love you. She says, me too. why didn't she say anything to Joe about how that relationship ended? Is it because she was afraid Joe was another Peter? Is it because she didn't want him to take advantage of her if he was? Is it because she felt ashamed? Um, is it because she didn't want to acknowledge it to herself? Because the thing is Joe another Peter? He might be. Last season he was. Is he this season? I mean, again, him at the end of season 1 saying to the guy at the gas station, is she up there, or does she ever come down? He knew that he was going to find Sarah there. How much does he know about where she's at in life right now? How much did he know at that time? So I don't know. Is Joe another Peter? That's the question of all questions to ask at this time. We are just going to have to see where this thing goes. So, Sarah has revealed this information. And then based on that, you figure like there's got to be tension between Sarah and Jacob. Sarah brought this guy into Jacob's world. Jacob lost a lot of money because of it. You know, he wasn't able to really adequately protect his daughter. So he's trying to do that now in his way. Doesn't feel like they've worked things out in a healthy way between them. Seems like they're sort of not like with Donna and Cameron. I mean, Jacob offering Joe the job and Sarah saying, I'm not happy that he did that. Yeah, there are problems here in their communication as well. Okay, let's go back to the Clark household. Gordon is pouring some wine for Donna at home, and there's some food on the stove, and he's calling over to Donna. He's like, I can't wait for you and the girls to taste this. Donna's like, this is takeout. I saw the containers in the trash. Gordon says, what? Right. You like Sal's cacciatore, right? And she says, well, hey, the good news is that at least your obsession with Tank Battle paid off. The Coder monkeys said you came up with a good fix. Gordon says, yeah, I just did that on my break from work. Sure, your 9-hour break, Mr. Sexy Beard. It's pretty funny. I like that she called him out there and used a screen name to do it. Gordon says, well, the way yes, I must have left it on for 9 hours. Anyway, the way those nitwits coded it made it so much worse. Donna says, well, no, that was because it's a different thing. It's because of Tom. It was this guy who hacked into the system, and then Cameron ended up hiring him. But he had this breakthrough. It's a software PBX that allows you to up to 50 users to play on a single phone line. Gordon freezes. This is it. He's like, that would be huge. He's heard the idea, the thing that's going to get him to the thing. So he's like already checked out of the conversation. And Donna says, I'm tempted to go back to that VC jerk just to see if it'll change his mind, but I can't bring myself. Gordon says, well, but how many potential users are there for Mutiny? Donna says, now you sound like the guy. There's no way to know. Gordon says, yeah, but isn't that critical? Don't you need me to solve this problem? It'll affect your valuation. She's like, there's no crystal ball for this. He's like, well, I will find one. Maybe there is. She says, okay, you need a map of the existing network because Mutiny can only see a subset of users at any given time. But what if anyone who could log on legitimately or not did it at the same time? How many people would you have? That could affect your valuation. Gordon runs. He's like, I've got to start working on this. Eat without me. So he's finally found his purpose. It's a purpose nobody asked him for, but it's a purpose that he has nonetheless. Now we're going to go back to the Mutiny house. Boz is outside the house in their backyard. He's smoking, and Cam's going to come out. She says, you can work here, but you cannot live here. Boz is going to laugh because that sounds very familiar. He said that same thing to her. And the truth is that like everybody lives at the Mutiny house now. This was said with love. Cam says, look, your letters meant a lot to me. Boz says, the last one you wrote, you signed it Catherine. Cam says, well, Cameron was my dad's name, and I started using it after he died. I used to write letters to him in Vietnam. I must have written that in that last one by mistake. She says, Boz, you can't just stuff envelopes around here. You know, our books are a mess. You could help with accounts retrievable. He's like, receivable. She says, see, you know, I suck at this. We need you to take a look at all this stuff. We need you to be our CEO. You know, we need help raising money. You can get your own office, or at least we can find a corner for you. Boss says, Catherine, that's nice, but I need to work some stuff out. Okay. I need to get my head straight. It's beautiful you letting me work here, but I'm not ready for that yet. Kim says, how long do you need? Boss says, I don't know. And he walks away. So he's gonna try to fly on his own for a little bit without Cam's support. And there is some baggage there. I mean, there's obviously love there, but does he want a pity job? You know, I think he probably sees that that's what it is. So he's gonna try to get on his own 2 feet. We're going to go into an office, and there's a secretary holding up a gift for Jacob Wheeler, who's getting on an elevator. And she says, Mr. Wheeler, this just came for you. And it is a waffle iron, which we can clearly see with a red ribbon wrapped around it. Jacob says, was there a note? She says, yes, stuck inside. And she reads it for him. She says, thank you for the opportunity. It's not signed. I think it's a waffle iron. Yes, it's definitely a waffle iron. You are holding in your hands an unboxed waffle iron. Jacob says, I know who it's from. And he smiles. So, you know, Joe didn't have to sell the waffle irons. He's just giving them away for free. So we're going to go back to Gordon, who's in the garage. He's coding. He's looking at his notes. He's very excited. And he's going to throw away the cocaine. Just, you know, he's just going to throw it in the garbage. You can retrieve it from the garbage, but he's throwing it away. It's a gesture. And the camera is a little tilted here as we're looking at him. So once again, it's the second time in this episode that I noticed like sort of the Dutch angle of it all. We're off balance. We're off center here. So that's New Coke. Now, in terms of music, there were some cool things that we got here in this episode. So we've got, first of all, Sneaking Out by Zeros from 1977. This is played in a scene where Cam is working with the coders in the beginning of the episode. And really, she's acknowledging all the fact that they're not getting their work done. And then, of course, we have, for me, the song of the episode, which was Close to the Edit by Art of Noise. It's a 1984 song. And this is Gordon setting up his workstation at home, you know, with 2 monitors. That's what he was setting up. And then another really cool song. It's called I Am the Fly by Wire. Now, this was originally a 1978 song, but what we're hearing here is a 2006 remastered version. And this is when Gordon does not know what to do at his workstation after having set it up. And then one more song that I picked up here is called Bolshevik Sugarcane by Shiny Ribs. So this is, I think, a 2013 song. And this is when Joe and Sarah are at that, whatever that location is, that sort of like promenade location by the water with that fire pit, talking about the job offer from Jacob. So that's the song there. Now, I've got a couple I've got an honorable mention for favorite quote and then a favorite quote. There are quite a lot of quotes here that I thought were really good that I mentioned across the episode, but I picked 2. So the honorable mention is, what's the point of playing a game if the outcome is random? And I think I am reading more into that quote than maybe the show meant for me to. I'm taking a lot more of an existential message away from it than perhaps Gordon meant in that moment. But I do like that, and I like Gordon saying that at this point in the season. My favorite quote is a very short one, and it's kind of at the end of a story from Donna. Donna says, saved by squalor. You know, those pizza boxes really saved those XTs that Yo-Yo dropped. Saved by squalor. So it's the Mutiny House, right? So those are my favorite quotes of the episode. Now, I wanted to go and share a little bit of feedback that we've got here. First of all, From the Whatness, always good to hear from you. So this is a comment about last episode, the opening of season 2, where the Whatness said, this season premiere is the pivot point of arguably the entire series that allowed the show to continue to reinvent itself season to season. I love how the core 4 remains the center, but who among that 4 is highlighted continues to shift, just like the show's title, the Halt and Catch Fire command suggests. I love how this episode sets up Donna and Cameron's relationship, one that the forward momentum of the series relies heavily upon. I think all 4 seasons place one character as the focal point for the others to be reacting to. Season 1 is very much an awakening for Gordon Clark, being capped off with him fully stepping into his power and asking what's next. Season 2 is above and away Cam's season. The 3rd season is all about Joe's internal growth, and the 4th and final sees Donna at the center. So few shows have managed to really rebuild themselves as seamlessly as Halt and Catch Fire, while carrying over characters and their developments from one season to the next. Also, the Witness says, really loved the manic one-take opening of this episode. Such a great introduction to the Mutiny House and its many mutineers. I think this is such a cool comment. I have always felt that in that feeling of the show reinventing itself each season, but haven't really explored what the reinvention is each time. And I mean, I think at least one time there's sort of like a very on the nose reasoning to give, but this idea that it's because we've put one of the 4 main characters, let's say without Boz, at the center for each episode, for each season, is something I hadn't considered. And now that I do, I like that. The idea that Gordon was sort of at the center of season 1 really tracks with how I talked about, Gordon going from being sort of the guy who's lost his vision and his inspiration to being the guy who ultimately got the whole group to Comdex. That for me does track. And then, he goes on to be the leader at Cardiff Electric without Joe, because Joe walked away and torched everything literally. And so he became a leader of that company in a way that I don't know that he thought he'd be a leader of a company anymore at the start of the season. So yeah, that works. I think obviously we have yet to see on this rewatch, we have yet to see season 2 play out fully, but this idea that Cam is at the center of it, I think that makes sense for what we've seen here. Cam is the leader of a leaderless company in Mutiny. This was her idea. She, established this. She started it out of her home. And she's just to figure out what it looks like to be a leader at this company when she obviously didn't want to be. She's trying not to be the leader. But I guess that sort of falls to her anyway. And then, we'll have to see, is season 3 about Joe? Is season 4 about Donna? I think that's true in both cases. So I like this. I really like that take. Okay, now from Present Hour 24, who shared some feedback on season 1, episode 10, the episode 1984. And this feels well timed to me here. So Present Hour 24 says, thank you for sharing your insights from this episode and the comments. I really like the green lighting in this episode during the office party scene. It's as if the light indicates they are in the green and the computer is good to go. Joe needs to accept that he needs to change for the better if he wants to stay connected with his friends and coworkers, but it seems like he is unable to accept his trauma as being trauma so he can grow past it. To me, it seems like Joe needs to change from the inside and not just keep looking at the outside world, unless he really wants to get into hiking as a hobby. Cameron working at the phone company needs to be its own series. It would be hilarious to see her work there and eventually invent the first cell phone. The Mutiny business models seem very on the level and was very excited to see take place with Cameron trying on boss mode. That, as much as Present Hour 24, you were talking about the last episode of season 1, I feel like all that stuff is coming up again here. Including the fact that you specifically mentioned the green lighting in the season finale of season 1. And remember, if that's the Gordon season, so it's all going to tie together here, and Gordon is represented by green, according to that article that I had found. That party, Gordon is the one that's taken charge. Remember, Joe is just like the guy at the party who's not moving or speaking to anyone. He's just standing in the corner, staring at the machine, doing nothing, being weird. Gordon is the one who's making the speeches, and he's cracking the champagne glass, and he's thanking Joe, and he's thanking Donna. Gordon is at the center of the party, and it's lit green. So it's really all checking out here when you mention that. And yeah, I mean, can Joe move past whatever his cycle has been? Has he moved past it here in season 2? Or is he continuing it? Because it's starting out looking exactly the same, but is what's inside different? Present Hour 24 doesn't seem to be so sure about that. And here we are watching Cam trying to be boss here in season 2. So, or trying not to be boss for that matter in season 2. So thank you so much for your great feedback. And now, I know you've been waiting. Evan the Stray. Okay, Evan. First of all, I wanted to mention a few comments that Evan had made on some previous episodes and some answers to some questions. So first of all, in reference to Nathan saying to Joe, like, you sent my good friend to prison, which I took issue with. Evan did too. Evan says, Nathan is totally hypocritical with the sent my good friend to prison line. Nathan is second generation money and probably hasn't inspired anyone at Cardiff Electric to do anything cutting edge in decades, if ever. Yeah, Nathan. Ouch. It's true. Nor did Nathan want to inspire anybody, I don't think. That was not his aspiration in life. Here's an important one that I've gotten an answer to, both from Jennifer Roner, and Evan is giving me a product name here. Also, Easy Cheese was the go-to brand for all of your aerosolized cheese needs. Salty processed cheese, delicious, and begging for a subsequent quick fix of serious potassium afterwards. I asked, and I have received. Okay, that's what Yo-Yo was eating. Good to know. I haven't tried it, so I should not knock it. But I feel much more connected to Yo-Yo because I think I know now what he was eating. Okay, regarding red flags for Sarah, Evan says, Sarah's red flags on Joe drinking game might work for this season. From episode 1, he says, sweaty embraces, jobless, no check, impromptu proposal, online gaming with ex, plus the prior knowledge. That's a lot. Yeah, Evan. And let's add to that this time lying about having multiple job prospects. That doesn't feel good, that he suggested to Sarah that he was going to get on his feet soon and couldn't. And, you know, taking this job from Jacob, I don't know. I mean, I don't like that Jacob put it out there. That feels really invasive for Sarah. I don't like that Joe took it. Because that feels like it puts Sarah in a weird position. But hey, you know, we're adding up the red flags and the tally is growing. All right, now Evan's thoughts regarding this episode. Jacob makes a run at Joe for a job in front of the planes bomb site. Ooh, this is an interesting observation about the blocking. I like that. I do wonder, like, who is actually in control in this situation, because we saw Joe find his way into a company in season 1 and he was actually in the driver's seat. But is Jacob here? Okay. Next thought. News of Boz joining the mutiny team without Cam speaking with Donna prior to any decision being made certainly sparks Donna's ire. I would have liked to hear Motley Crue's Looks That Kill 1984 release played at this moment, because Donna is melting Cam's face with that stare. I suppose Led Zeppelin's Communication Breakdown 1969 release would have worked here too, but I would have preferred the intensity of the former. Perhaps those two songs would have been too literal and not fit the tone of the show. That's cool. I like the soundtrack suggestions here. I think music adds so much to how we interpret a scene. And it's interesting to me, Evan, that for you, you actually imagine songs that you would want to play. I don't find that I do that, but I find that listening to the songs that are chosen does influence me a lot in a scene. He also says, close to the edit, Art of Noise, fun 80s song, Gordon's Two Commodores and Cocaine. What a funny scene that is. I am just illuminated by this song. I never knew that it existed. It's so perfect. And that smile we get from Gordon when he's opening the hatchback is just like so like creepily awesome and wonderful. Okay. Cameron rebuts VC guys, Mr. Bondum's parallax feedback with, I think if your nephew understood coding a little better, he'd think parallax was pretty cool. Cam's hasty response to blame the customer clearly was a red flag for Bondum, amongst others, though he opted to finish their meeting with 2 servings of sexism pertaining to children and reproducing. So yes, I like her instinct of what she said was like, well, your nephew is an unreliable source. It doesn't work on a few levels, both because that's reducing the credibility of his nephew, who he's got more of a bond to his nephew than to Cam. Also, the reality is that most of the users that they're trying to get to play their game are probably not going to have coding experience. So they need people like his nephew to feel good about playing the game, even if they don't know what the details are behind the game. But where I don't agree, Evan, is I don't think that Cam saying that made the conversation, like, I don't think that the pitch was going well. I don't think the meeting was going well. And then she said that and it veered off course. I think he already knew he was not going to invest in that company before she said that. I think he knew from the moment we start with him closing the binder and with him basically saying like, most of your games aren't great and you've only produced 2 games in the last 15 months. So I guess you're not really in a rush. I think he was always headed down that track. And we also see a number of reaction shots with Donna along the way, even from before Cam makes that comment, where you think like she knows the conversation isn't going well. So while that was not a great instinct from Cam, and had the conversation been going well, could have been the thing that tanked it, they were never getting that money, in my opinion. Okay, Boz's "Is this really my life now?" looks are so authentic feeling, especially right after Lev is confronted with mocking him in the letter reading, and Cam tells Lev to leave. Yeah, we get a lot of those looks from Boz here, and it did make me think, because like the new Coke title of this episode feels most on the nose for Gordon, but I think you can make a case it applies to Boz. And he sort of aborts the mission himself in this episode. Fun fact from Evan, $25,000 in 1985 is the 2024 equivalent of $72,400. That's not a bad starting salary then for Tom, huh? And then they would have bumped that down a little bit to 20,000, but that's a really good frame of reference to have here. Evan says, after Cam comes back from Tom's house, the interaction between Donna and Cam is very mother-daughter / parent-child in nature. It's an interesting observation. And I think you're right. It's very like little slap on the wrist, don't do this again, but I still love you anyway, sort of like feeling to it. And I don't know that that's a dynamic that's going to work in this relationship long term. And it's a dynamic that Donna has said she doesn't want. She doesn't want to be the mom. So if you saw that undertone in this scene, that's probably not something that's satisfying to either of those characters. Evan says, LOL, Cocaine Gordon is so motivated. He runs hotter but better. Yeah, I guess the question is, I mean, hotter but better. I think Gordon at his peak was Gordon saving the day, trying to get the whole team to Comdex. And at Comdex, I think he functioned pretty well. And that was without cocaine. So is it possible for Gordon to be functional or inspired as a worker without substance use? Hopefully. Okay, we're going to get some Sarah thoughts here. Sarah was betrayed by Peter. She would understandably have serious trust issues following that relationship. Jacob is likely going to have heightened feelings of protection towards Sarah, which would conflict with his ability to implicitly trust her and would thereby likely cause friction, likely resulting in Sarah distancing herself from Jacob. This separation would also likely increase feelings of insecurity from Jacob and exacerbate the problem of him insinuating himself into her life more. This would be on top of Jacob likely feeling shame for not successfully protecting Sarah and his finances before. Cue more control. Good grief. I was saving some of my thoughts on Sarah and Jacob because I knew that Evan had expressed this so thoroughly and so well. Like I a lot of places where the tension could be coming from here, a lot of probably shame and there's a distance here, and I'm not sure the way that they're currently handling it is going to be a healthy solution for either of them. But here we are. Evan says, I completely forgot that Cameron was not Cam's name. How could I? It's not a detail that comes up very often. And I kind of like that even for fans of the show, we can forget that detail because it sort of feels like it's something that should just sit between Boz and Cam, like it almost makes it more special that it's such like a small detail that it's easy for us to forget it because it's just their thing, so I really like that detail. All right. Evan's got quotes. And the cool thing, I like that we've had different quotes the last couple episodes because there's a lot of good quotes in this show and the dialogue should be acknowledged. Okay, third runner-up. I'm not one of those people who gets addicted to stuff easily. I can promise you that, Gordon says. He might get addicted to stuff easily. Second runner-up is a Tom quote. Since I don't want the job, can I not have the lecture as well? I love Tom. I love Tom episodes. Come fight me. I don't know. If you don't like Tom, tell me why. If you do like Tom, I have no idea how people feel about Tom. I just am guessing people don't like him. And so I would love to hear from all of you on your Tom thoughts. Okay. First runner-up, Sarah. Evan likes this one because it's a tongue twister. Thanks, Evan. Okay, here we go. Let me try. Peter never paid him back a penny. I did it. Nicely chosen. Good alliteration. Okay. And the winner. You can work here, but you cannot live here. Cam, quoting Boz, this line's tie back to early mid-season 1 is great. It's both funny and touching. It's a waypoint in their friendship that's showing maturity and reciprocity. And it really is a lighthearted thing because as much as Boz is in a weird space right now, and they both know that, everybody lives at the Mutiny House. So it's like the safest thing to say that right now. Yeah. So much good feedback. And it feels like, we're entering a new era here in season 2, and I'm enjoying it very much. And I can't wait to get into episode 3 from this season next time. But in the meantime, go out there and watch Halt and Catch Fire, everyone. Bye.